First of all, we would like to give a thanks to Amarillo College for providing this location for us. They are wonderful to do this. They've done it several times, and it seems to be very convenient for most people to come. And we are so glad that we were once again able to use this beautiful facility. Laxma Wadi Cortez is in charge of our wonderful refreshments. She and her committee have worked hard to provide refreshments for you tonight. Our president, Rosalie Powell, unfortunately, is not able to be here. She had some recent surgery. It turned out to be quite an ordeal. She is home now, and we are so thankful for that. I'd like to introduce our moderator, who is also a member of the League of Women Voters, James Hunt. And he's going to introduce our program and our speakers. James?
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, League, and thanks to all of you here tonight. We are here, of course, to talk about this election that early voting begins on Monday for, and then officially November 3rd election. With tonight's forum, we will hear discussion of the 7 proposed constitutional amendments to our state constitution, and we will also hear some discussion of what has been described as the MPEV, and whether to construct a baseball stadium within the MPEV. That will also, of course, as I think quite a few of you in the audience already know, that's also going to be on the ballot November 3rd. It's kind of a feature item here locally. For tonight's event, our timekeeper will be League member Ms. Joyce Hensley. Thank you very much for your service. She's right here in the front. Oh. So this is already a new development. The main timekeeper will be Robert Goodrich. So already a surprise, and we're yet to be underway. As we go through tonight's event, audience members who want to submit questions about the constitutional amendments or about the baseball diamond construction project, please use the notepads that have been provided. They're there in front of you where you are seated, and print your questions so that they can be read. Audience questions will then be picked up and sorted by students in the West Texas Political Science Club, which League member Professor Claudia Stravato is sponsor of that club. They will also be assisted by Macy Everett and Ellen Abraham, a couple of our members. So we're going to begin now with the introduction of the speakers for the amendments on the state constitution, the proposed amendments, the for and against. We have with us, seated here directly in front of me, Dr. Susan Coleman with the Political Science Department at West Texas A&M University, and her colleague in that same department, Dr. David Roush. For the speakers and for the audience, just to know, the speakers have been given 5 minutes for each of the 7 constitutional amendments. They're not bound to 5 minutes as a minimum. We're just looking at that as a maximum. I think the ruling already is they don't need 5 for all of them. And audience members, if you would like to know more about these proposed amendments, you may also write questions for the speakers. And please, when you have written your question, hold up your question, and one of the students will pick them up. So, I've already introduced Dr. Susan Coleman and Dr. David Roush. The two of you are free to take it away.
Does have the date. It says on. I don't know what the date. There we go. Good morning. Several weeks ago, Susan called me and asked how we're going to divide this, and the thought was to have it pro and con. I will let you in on a little secret, little Roush secret. You're going to all boo about this, but a little Roush secret. I always vote no on all the constitutional amendments. I haven't been wrong yet. Anyway, what I did was we decided that I would do the odd-numbered ones, and she would do the even-numbered ones. I forgot at that point that there are 7, so I guess I get to do more of them. a lot of the information that I provide and a lot of the information I like to use, and particularly use for my classes, is at a website called ballotpedia.org. It's kind of nice. I do research a lot on Oklahoma because that's where I went to graduate school, and they also have the Citizen Initiative, which is one of the things I like to study. And which, by the way, I cringe whenever I hear the word non-binding referendum, though that's an oxymoron. But hold it on me to criticize any governmental official. But Ballotpedia, one of the nice things about it is it's a dynamic website. It's not a static where they print something, put it on there, and it stays the same. Over time, they add links to editorials for the different constitutional amendments. They add some more people, pro and con people. In about 4 days, I noticed a couple of the amendments actually went a page or so on the web. So they actually added more information to them. So you might want to look at ballotpedia.org. So let's take a look at the first one. I feel like I'm in an auction here. Proposition 1. I'll use the official title, which is the Texas Homestead Exemption for School District Property Taxes Amendment. And what this amendment basically would do is to change the homestead exemption from property taxes levied by school districts by to $25,000. I think now they're at 15 or 10. 15, yes. They're at 15 now. They'll be raised to $25,000 for school districts. I stress that because I live in Canyon. What the information that's been provided is that this will save the average homeowner close to $120 to $130 a year. In Amarillo, we're voting on a new pool, and the thought is that if that passes, that'll increase people's property taxes by about $100. So if you live in Canyon, now wait, there's nothing with the city of Canyon here. It's the school district. The other challenge with this is, how's the school district going to make up the money that it loses by not having that property tax income come in? Well, the state has said that it's going to set aside money to sort of hold the school districts harmless. So they won't lose any money. The problem is now that we have that money that's going to be paid for school funding won't be available for other funding. I always like to, for some reason, think college professor pay. I don't know. That's always at the top of my mind. I don't know why, but it is. What's interesting is that the amendment passed the House of Representatives pretty much unanimously, but it was opposed by 6 senators. One of the supporters is that this will put more money back in the economy will grow, so even renters will benefit. The opponents clearly point out that the renters won't benefit because if you lower the property taxes of rental property, does your landlord necessarily lower your rent? So that's number one. I haven't been given the cut signal yet, so I can actually make up stuff as I'm sitting here. As home prices continue to rise, one of the challenges, everybody hates the property tax. Is there anyone that loves a property tax? No one is really a home owner. No one owns their own home. At any time, your home could be taken away from you if you don't pay your property tax. The challenge that we have in Texas is there's so many property taxes. One of the cool things I have my students do in my state and local government class, I think is cool, they don't, but I think it's cool, is they have to go to a local government meeting. So I send them to their appraisal district website so they can figure out what their local government is. Anything that assesses you a property tax is a local government. So some places that might just be the county. No, actually everybody has at least 2, county and school district, public school district, independent school district, consolidated school district. So everybody in the state of Texas is covered by 2. Some have 3 if you live in a city like Canyon or Amarillo or other places. You might have a special district that you live in, the High Plains Water District, for example, High Plains Underground Water District, whatever the title is. And so everybody hates the property tax. So let's cut it by $130.
Proposition 2 is the Texas property tax exemption for surviving spouses of disabled veterans amendment. Every 2 years, since 2007, we have, as voters, dealt with the issue of veterans and the property tax. And in 2011, one of the things that happened was that with that amendment, it created two classes of veteran spouses, one of which could claim the property tax exemption and one which could not. This amendment is intended to make it apply to all totally disabled veterans' spouses. The advantage is obvious. We all honor veterans and appreciate their service, and this would assist families of veterans. The other side is, of course, that this is going to cost money, and it will cost the first year approximately $1.2 million. But then the next year, it's $6.5 million. So this is going to force local governments who rely on the property tax or have some part of property tax, such as Amarillo College, school districts, local governments, etc., to come up with other sources of revenue or to delete services. The proposition reads, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide for an exemption from ad valorem taxation of all or part of the market value of the residence homestead of the surviving spouse of a 100% or totally disabled veteran who died before the law authorizing a residence homestead exemption for such a veteran took effect. So some people are arguing this is merely a housekeeping amendment to clarify previous law, and others are looking at it from the effect that it will have on local governmental units.
And then some of the information I found was that there are approximately 3,800 surviving spouses of totally disabled veterans who died before 2010. So this amendment, you can actually probably go visit all 3,800 of them, since they all probably live in San Antonio around the military bases there. But am I being facetious? Today's big word is facetious, by the way. Sarcasm comes later. Actually, sarcasm comes into effect now. I've always thought it would be a good constitutional amendment to make a requirement that the title of the amendment has to fit on a button. The Texas Property Tax Exemption for Surviving Spouses of Disabled Veterans Amendment would not fit on a button. Okay, here's a fun one. Proposition 3, we still haven't gotten the cut sign. I think I'm doing pretty good. As a professor, I'm impressed by the fact that I haven't received the cut sign. Proposition 3 is the Texas State Capital Residency Repeal Amendment. What this would do is it would repeal Austin as the state capital. And they move it to Tulsa. Anyway, what this measure does, this measure would repeal the constitutional requirement that certain elected executive officials live in Austin. Now, reading all the news reports and things, I'm trying to figure out where George P. Bush actually lives, because he's almost never at the General Land Commission office, General Land Office, GLO, wherever the land commissioner works. The offices that would be affected by the repeal are the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, comptroller of public accounts, land commissioner, and any statutory state officer who is elected by the electorate of the Texas at large. This requirement, right now, if you're elected, let's take attorney general. We regularly want to take the attorney general in many places, but let's take the attorney general. He had to move his residence to Austin from Collin County, which actually in some cases he might have been better off moving to Austin, less indictments in there than in Collin County. But what's interesting about this is he would be allowed to actually work from home. I can't do this, it actually is his home in Collin County. What's interesting is, again, this was one of those where there was a little bit of opposition in the House. 43 House members opposed it. Only one senator opposed it. And what's interesting about that senator is, I don't know, looking around, I don't know where you all live, but the senator might actually be one that represents you. It's Senator Estes from, I'm going to guess, Wichita Falls area. I think, isn't it Mineral Wells? Somewhere in that general vicinity, that way. East of here. Everything's east of here, really. The constitutional amendment repealing the requirement that state officers elected by voters statewide reside in the state capital. Senator Donna Campbell, Austin's great, but to mandate that someone must have a residency there, and if you don't have the dollars, you have to sell your home, and if you have a family, you have to uproot your children. It's an unfair burden. Interesting. The paragon of liberal politics in the state of Texas. He's got to be the most liberal House member I'm aware of. A gentleman by the name of Tom Craddock. Tom Craddock opposes this measure. Representative Tom Craddock said that he supported allowing statewide elected officials to live within 50 miles of Austin. So he would draw a big circle around Austin, and you got to stay within 50 miles of that, in that circle. But not just anywhere in the state. He said, how are they going to be at work every day? I think we're going to see a real change in what we got. I think this is a bad bill. There's also a conspiracy theory that goes around this bill. The Texas legislature passed House Bill 1690 on June 1st, 2015, and the statute was signed into law by Governor Abbott. HB 1690, which you might want to look up, House Bill 1690, changed how public officials are investigated and prosecuted for corruption. Rather than being investigated and prosecuted in Travis County, officials will be prosecuted in their home counties. Supporters argue that the current law puts too much power in the hands of someone that may someday abuse that. Opponents express concern that House Bill 1690 would eventually end up contributing to corruption. A person goes back home, and they could have a political ally or a political enemy that could hurt or help intentionally. I feel no perspiration voting no on this one. So. Plus, I sided with Craddock. Gotta do something good sometimes.
Proposition 4, the Texas Sports Team Charitable Foundation Raffles Amendment. So this again violates David's rule about buttons. The constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to permit professional sports teams, charitable foundations to conduct charitable raffles. So that if you go to one of the professional sports events in the state of Texas for the major league sports, be it basketball, soccer, hockey, football, baseball, you could also be asked by that group to participate in a raffle. The money then, in theory, is to go to the foundations that they run, and each of these teams in Texas has one of these, and well, I think there's one that doesn't, so I will retract all, that then distribute funds to and support various charities in their community. And that is the argument, that this will increase the funds going to charities within those particular communities. Now, for those of us who live outside Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and others that might have professional sports teams, we're not going to see much benefit of this, I suspect, because again, they're emphasizing their community. The provisions for this is that 50% or less, and I want to stress the less, must be awarded to the raffle winner. 40% or more must be donated to the charity. 10% or less could be used for raffle operating expenses. This includes purchasing the equipment, publishing the raffle tickets, the folks who administer this. So certainly there would be benefits to the foundations for their 10% raffle operating expenses. Now, the concern of many people is that, first of all, this is the slippery slope. That next we're going to have bingo and other charitable groups conducting these raffles and doing it electronically, so that you don't even have to be physically present. So will it increase gambling in the state of Texas? And the argument there is that it will, and you don't know where it's going to be headed next. And of course, the counter argument is for those people who live in those areas with these qualifying professional sports teams. And remember, it's national teams, like the National Baseball League or something. It's not, our local professional teams that we may or may not have. So that is the concern here. Also, the concern is if age of people who are buying, age of people who are selling, and other aspects of this. This also carries with it some criminal penalties for violation. If you're under 18 and you buy a ticket or you sell a ticket to someone who's under 18, and other provisions of this ilk. So, again, limited impact in the Panhandle in terms of direct donations, I suspect, but certainly worthwhile for those communities where you see this.
One of the interesting things about this amendment was that all of the no votes in the legislature were from Republicans. So I thought you might want to note that on here, because it's been opposed by the Christian Life Commission of the Baptist General Convention of Texas. So, teaching a class next semester on religion and politics, I've been looking up stuff. Proposition 5. So let's see, there's 7 of them. We're already at Proposition 5, and I noticed on the notes here, we have until 9 o'clock. So, there's another vote on the ballot? Oh, yeah, that's right, the pool in Canyon. Proposition 5, the Texas population requirement for private road work amendment. Okay, this measure would authorize counties with populations of 7,500 or less, according to the most recent census, to construct and maintain private roads if the counties impose reasonable charges for the work. So you live in a county, small county, and you want to have a road. The county can actually do it for you. You have to pay them back reasonably, a reasonable charge for it. And yay, it's done. It's interesting, and my wife pointed this out, the discussion I had last night at the group that I spoke to. Currently, counties with populations of 5,000 or less, so they're raising it from 5,000, it's already being done in counties that have 5,000 or less, to 7,500. This bill was introduced by Senators Perry and Seliger. So you can kind of get a sense where the previous one was sort of an urban, you can expect a lot of support from urban areas. You kind of expect a lot of support from small counties for this one. And we have a lot of them around here. This one, by the way, passed unanimously in the House and the Senate. I don't even know why I'm talking about it. The more I think about it, nobody really loses because this equipment the county has to build the road is just sitting there. So they can actually put it to work. They can put people to work. The people get paid. I'm actually starting to like this one, which I find shocking because, as I mentioned earlier, I almost always vote no. My wife takes like 20 minutes to vote on these things. I'm in and out of there before they can give me my little number to type in the machine. But yeah, this has been a constitutional amendment or a constitutional provision since 1980. So since 1980, small counties have been allowed to build roads for private citizens. I guess we'd have to figure out who just determines what's a reasonable charge. And I would assume that if you went to the county and said, could you build a road for me? And they said it would be $500,000, you could say, we'll just drive on the dirt, that type of thing. But it's possible you might need that road for your business, whatever your business might be, private business. In 1980, 68% of the voters approved the amendment, which I thought was kind of small. That's a low number, 68, that's only 2/3 voted yes on it. Small counties must maintain expensive road construction and maintenance equipment, even though it's not required on a full-time basis. They could recoup a part of their investment with the revenue received from private road work. This would help defray the increased costs of their public road programs. So the money they collect from the people doing the private roads, they can put back into the public roads. Now, when I was a little kid, I used to like to watch the Dukes of Hazzard. Anyone know where I'm going with this one? You get a Boss Hogg type of person where the county's he has the best paved road. It's paved with gold. And that can become a bit of a problem. You voted against the county judge, so he's not going to let your road be paved. You have to watch that, I guess. That's in a county of less than 7,500, it shouldn't be that hard to see that type of thing happening.
The next proposition is titled the Texas Right to Hunt, Fish, and Harvest Amendment. The constitutional amendment recognizing the right of the people to hunt, fish, and harvest wildlife subject to laws that promote wildlife conservation. Again, this has some economic impact. Those who support this point out that there are more hunters and fisher persons in the state of Texas than the population of Houston, and that this is a larger industry in terms of agriculture than any other crop, including cotton. So they're very concerned about this. The trend apparently is for adoption of these kinds of protections across the country. Some 19 states have either hunting and fishing or fishing protections in place. The opponents to this amendment argue, first of all, that we have other laws that protect hunting and fishing in the state of Texas. And one of the concerns about this amendment is the right of how do you define hunting and fishing. And it talks about the reasonable and traditional methods of doing these things. Others are concerned that trapping animals by using traps that catch their feet, for example, that most of us would consider improper and not right to do, could fall under traditional. So there is some, as I said, there's some concern about traditional methods. There's concern about the language that this is to be the primary management tool of conservation of wildlife, that there may be other methods other than hunting and fishing that would be better suited to controlling and managing the wildlife. Others who support it are apparently fearful that an extreme, to borrow their language, animal rights group could somehow affect the Texas legislature and persuade them to create a law that would limit this. I think we all know the Texas legislature, and I would argue that might be somewhat of a spurious argument, but nevertheless it is put forward for this. There's also concern that this takes away control from the Texas Parks and Wildlife and also impacts the amount of money that they could collect for these various and sundry licenses.
Just a little historical background. The first state to enact this constitutional amendment was Vermont in 1777. The second state was Alabama in 1996. So you can see it's been pretty active over the history of the United States to do that. Indiana's going to vote on it next year. That's interesting too. Okay, we've reached what I refer to as the last one, because it's Proposition 7. I keep thinking, I think I did something like this one time when we had 22 of them, 22 constitutional amendments. You like to bring a chair to go vote. You have to sit down to be able to read all of the. 7's a light, airy election. This should be a breeze. Proposition 7, Texas Sales and Use Tax Revenue for Transportation Amendment. This measure would supply funding to the State Highway Fund from two tax revenue sources, the sales and use tax and the state motor vehicle sales and rental tax. Okay, everyone with a piece of paper, you might want to write some of this down. If the state collects more than $28 billion from the sales and use tax in one fiscal year, the next $2.5 billion of tax revenue will be directed to the State Highway Fund. Okay, so there's $28 billion, sales tax comes in. The next 2.5 automatically goes to transportation, to highway. Well, State Highway Fund. This would run 15 years. So for the next 15 years, September 1st, 2017 through September 1st, 2032. So this is automatic. Did I mention automatic already? This is automatic. The next 2.5 billion will go to the State Highway Fund. If the state collects more than $5 billion from the motor vehicle sales and rental tax in one fiscal year, 35% of the remaining revenue collected that year will go to the State Highway Fund. So again, you have to collect at least $5 billion in car sales tax, as well as car rental tax. And then the next 35%, this one only runs 10 years, though, so you only have to keep track of that for 10 years. September 1st, 2019 through September 1st, 2029. I can see all you excited about that. We're going to have like a big celebration on September 1st, 2029. We no longer have to do that. Now, of course, this money will not go to toll roads. But you also have to realize that the state, one of my good friends is the PIO up here. PIO, Public Information Officer. You got PIO for the Department of Transportation, Department of Highways. And he says we have to all pass this. So as I always say, I'm still voting no, but because it's a constitutional amendment. This one was very unanimous. Only one House member voted against it. And I don't remember which one that was. I should probably look that up, who that was. It's probably someone that lives in a city. Well, it's funny because city people kind of like roads too, so they can get out of the city. And then, people like us who have to go somewhere like them so we can get there. This is an expensive and this is an automatic constitutional. The plan to constitutionally dedicate a portion of the motor vehicle sales tax revenue to transportation projects is exactly what the business community has called for. And we will strongly support this proposed constitutional amendment. Texas must continue to build and improve infrastructure to support our fast growth and dynamic economy. Then the opponents will, there's very little opposition, but the opponents point out that was it 2.5 million is not being used for education or policing, hunting and fishing, or police. It's all highways. And it's automatic. So that 2.5 will automatically go. No ifs, ands, buts, no questions. So I don't know. I'll let you fight with that one. I would read you the whole. The ballot title is not that long. The constitutional amendment dedicating certain sales and use tax revenue and motor vehicle sales, use and rental tax revenue to the state highway fund to provide funding for non-toll roads and the reduction of certain transportation-related debt.
On this one, opponents are also pointing out that what you're doing is essentially depleting the general revenue fund that does go to support education, etc. This is, as was emphasized, automatic. It ties the hands of lawmakers in the future. And for example, in 2019, the two-year impact would be $5 billion, a $5 billion decrease in public and higher education funding or investment in the general government. $5 billion is rather significant. So you might mention and think about that as you get ready to vote. Let me encourage you as a member of the League of Women Voters, go vote.
All right, our thanks to Dr. Susan Coleman and Dr. David Roush for their presentations on the proposed constitutional amendments. At this time, the students, do we have any questions related to the constitutional amendments? If we do, the students will be sorting them and bringing them to me, and also assisting our members, Maisie Everett and Alan Abraham. And we will go a few minutes for questions here. And I'm a little in suspense here. Do we have questions related to the constitutional amendments? We do. Okay. All right. We're thank you to the lady somewhere in the back.
You can ask them anywhere. I feel like I'm sort of set. Baseball games, you don't have 50-50 raffles like the Rangers games. I don't think you really even have the like the Bulls games or the whatever the baseball games done. Funny part of the law is that the enabling access, it has to be all money. It has to be U.S. currency. I thought that was, it actually says U.S. currency. I don't know what else you would get. I have a Canadian dollar in my pocket. Only because I forget to take it out. It's a loonie. Here comes the question. It was a hard one. Matthew's going to trip and fall. Oh, yes. That's one of those where we have to write it down as a
Okay, we are beginning now to receive questions, and those of you who are bringing them up to me, don't be shy about bringing them up. Just step forward, and I will take them from you as I prepare to read the next one. The first one I will read, this concerns Proposition 2. We will go to Dr. Roush. If you would, briefly restate what Proposition 2 is, and here is the question. Doesn't this policy apply only until the spouse remarries?
That's a good one. But I'll restate this measure would authorize the Texas legislature to extend the current homestead exemption to spouses of totally disabled veterans who died before January 1st, 2010. So your spouse, and I'm not entirely clear with this one. Do you have to have been the spouse of the veteran when a few she's were fighting, were veteraning, or could you have married them after? I'm at a loss for that. Anyway, that's a scientific term. But the Texas Attorney General stated the surviving spouses of totally disabled veterans do receive the exemption no matter when the veteran died. So there's been some dispute. What was the question?
About if you remarry.
Oh, if you remarry.
Yes.
I don't see anything that says you do, but I also don't see anything that says you don't.
I also don't remember seeing anything that clarified that.
Okay, and then, this is a follow-up on the same proposition. Dr. Coleman, we'll go to you. Please re-explain about the veterans and the property taxes and exemptions. The questioner felt like they didn't quite get it the first go-round, so maybe a condensed repeat.
All right. We like to amend the Texas Constitution to support veterans, and we do that frequently with property tax exemptions. We've done that every 2 years since 2007. The last constitutional amendment, which went into effect which we adopted in 2011, left unclear whether veterans' spouses when the spouse died before the veteran died, I should clarify which spouse. The veteran died before 2010, could collect this. So we have two classes of veteran spouses at the current time. One can collect the property tax exemption and one cannot. So if your veteran spouse died before 2010, you cannot collect this exemption, and this is an attempt to remedy that.
I think I found a hint to the remarried question. There's a document produced every time we have constitutional amendments by the Texas Legislative Council. It's cleverly titled Analyses of Proposed Constitutional Amendments. They're very clever. But what I found... Next question. Oh. But it does say that if the surviving spouse has not remarried. So it does apply to remarried.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that. And okay, or do we have any? I have one more question here. Do we have any other? Okay, we do. And so we'll go to Proposition 5. I'll let the two of you choose who speaks first, but this can go to both of you because it's an opinion question. On Proposition 5, how fair is it that local governments will be in direct competition with private businesses and corporations? Dr. Roush, Dr. Coleman, whichever you speaks first, re-explain what Proposition 5 is, and then give your opinions.
Proposition 5, remember, is in counties with populations of 75,000 or less.
7,500.
That's actually one of the leading elements of the opponents is they say, why that cap of 7,500? See, I did it right this time. 7,500, why not just take the cap off completely, which would go to the private argument. Odds are, if you're in a county that has only 7,500 people or 5,000 or 4,000, how many private road construction companies are you going to have in that county? So they won't be competing maybe in that county. It might be 2 counties over. That could be a problem. And that is one of the opponent arguments. But again, it's just, let me get the opponent argument. Counties engaging in the private construction business is an encroachment on private enterprise. Counties will be in direct competition with private construction contractors at a time when the construction industry is financially depressed in many areas. But again, I guess you have to take a look at those counties that are that size. How many of them have local, and I guess your definition of local might be within 3,000 miles or whatever, but what's your definition of, direct competition? If there's one that's right in there, you probably hire because if you're building a road, of course, you probably take bids. And if the county's lower, well, the county's losing money. If the private company is lower, well, then you can go with them. Did I really sound like I actually like this one? I just think it's interesting that, I don't know, what counties around here would be 7,500?
Okay, we have, I believe this is the last question on the proposed constitutional amendments. This one pertains to Proposition 4, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to permit professional sports teams, charitable foundations to conduct charitable raffles. Here's the question. Both of you, Dr. Coleman, Dr. Roush, may give your opinions. The preface to the question: the NFL is a nonprofit, which, according to this question writer, is an oxymoron in itself, but it seems self-serving that professional sports leagues want the same protection that small, real nonprofits have. Please comment.
Of course, these foundations are separate and apart from these specific leagues. These are tied to these professional sports organizations. Each team may have one of these. I certainly understand the concern. We all know that any charitable contribution, we all make them. We all want them to go everywhere we can, and we can't. So that you are putting these in competition with the other nonprofits. The only difference here is, of course, these are going to be people who are in a particular location at a particular time and may choose to participate in this raffle or not. But if you consider that to be your charitable contribution as a fan of the Astros or the Rangers or whomever, then yes, it is a direct competition.
If they're nonprofit, wouldn't they already be allowed to do raffles?
No.
Okay.
They're not They are not among the listed exceptions at the current time, and that's the reason they need the constitutional amendment. Okay. Only certain types of organizations, I believe there are 7 or so, are allowed to do so under the Constitution, and these teams do not meet that at the present time.
Dr. Susan Coleman, Dr. David Roush from West Texas A&M, thank you so much for being here. A very good job on your presentations. I don't know how many people in the audience this describes, but virtually everything I know about the proposed constitutional amendments I learned tonight from the two of you. So thank you for your service to this voter, and I trust some others. Well, here, as we're going to get everything kind of reset, and then we're going to move on to, well, you could call this the other item we are going to discuss tonight, the multi-purpose events venue and the proposal to build a ballpark within what is referred to as the MPEV. So take a couple of moments and we will let our speakers make their way to the chairs, and then I'll introduce them and we'll just roll on. We have the preliminaries taken care of, including the turning on of the moderator's microphone. Took me a moment to get that right again. And we're going to move on now again to discussion related to the non-binding referendum that will also be on the November 3rd ballot. Early voting begins on Monday, October 19th, runs through October 30th. And to present tonight, we have with us Mr. Richard Brown, directly here to my right, to the left of most of you in the audience. Mr. Richard Brown, he is an attorney who will speak for the project. To his left and to the audience's right, we have Vince Nowak. He is an attorney who will speak against this proposed ballpark. We are going to begin with Mr. Brown, followed by Mr. Nowak. Let me explain that both presenters have 10 minutes apiece for their presentation, after which will follow a question and answer session, and in their answers, they will have 2 minutes apiece. And we once again thank our local students and league volunteers who will be collecting questions and bringing them to the front. Same procedure as before. If you have a question, please use the paper in front of you and the supplied pencil to write your question. We will have no verbal questions from the audience. We will go strictly in written form, and the questions will be delivered to me. So without further ado, we go to Richard Brown.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I've got a PowerPoint and more slides than you want to see, so we're going to be sort of on speed dial here. But sometimes pictures help. I'm going to speak for the non-binding referendum tonight, the vote for Amarillo. So this is the ballot language you're going to get. Should the multipurpose event venue, everybody calls it the MPEV, to be constructed in downtown Amarillo include a baseball stadium at the approximate cost of $32 million. So you see implicit in that is it is going to be built. Something is going to be built. A multipurpose events venue is to be constructed in downtown. And so the question on the ballot is, should it include a baseball stadium? And my answer to you is, why not? Why shouldn't that be one of the possibilities? Why would you take that off the table? We're trying to figure out how to get this done, and taking one of the solutions off the table does not help you get it done. If this is done, I think it's going to generate a huge economic return. Big numbers. Doesn't matter about the details. Big numbers if it works. And the important thing is on the MPEV funding, that most of the funding is going to come from two sources, one of which is the hotel occupancy tax funds. So what is that? If you come to Amarillo and you sleep in a hotel bed, you pay a tax the state imposes, and some of that comes back to Amarillo. And so that's the money that will supply the biggest part of the debt service that will be required to pay for the MPEV. And then the $250,000 operator rent payment is what is projected as what the operator of the facility will be paying. So we've got to get money from a bunch of places to get it done, but what we should be concerned about as voters is, and can we pay off the bonds? And the answer to that is we can, and we have plenty of hotel occupancy tax to get this done. We need approximately 1.5, 1.6 in hotel occupancy tax to help us retire the debt. And right now there's at least $1.7 million available to do that. And it has grown by, I think, 50% since 2008 or 9. And so unless you think there's going to be a magnetic impulse or something that all the cars stop driving down I-40, there will be occupancy tax to retire the debt. So where is the ad valorem tax increase? There is no ad valorem tax increase. Your city council told you, I guess 6 years ago, that this would be done without increasing the ad valorem tax rate in order to build this facility. And that's what is projected at this time. This is an important part. It's one part of a three-part downtown catalyst project. A convention headquarters hotel, a garage for that facility and for the ballpark, and then the ballpark. We call it a ballpark because it was always envisioned that the ballpark would essentially be, the baseball team would be sort of the anchor tenant. So if you think of a shopping center with lots of things going on, but there's one or two stores that are the big anchor tenant, well, the thought was that the baseball stadium would probably be the anchor tenant. This is the hotel. This is going to happen. This is someone else coming in and spending $45 million to build this new hotel right across the street from the Civic Center to be the new headquarters hotel for conventions held in our Civic Center. This is on Buchanan Street. You're kind of standing in front of the new ballpark or in front of City Hall and looking at it. Here's a picture from the front door of the new hotel. Here's a picture from, if you were at the Performing Arts Center looking south, across what's the abandoned 5th Street. That's the north end of the building. This is, I think, this is the southeast corner. So you can see there's the retail over on the right side, and then the parking garage is behind it. So it doesn't really look like a parking garage on 2 of the 4 sides. That's the northwest corner. That's what we have today. Not really attractive, is it? That's 6th Street looking west from City Hall. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to make this a place where people want to be. We're trying to build a catalyst project. Government, tax dollars cannot make this happen, but can be the catalyst, can help attract private funding to do what needs to be done downtown to reverse the economic blight that we've had and to create jobs. So why do we need a baseball park? Maybe we don't, but it's one of the possibilities, and I can't imagine why you would vote no on November 3 and say, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. What we need is a facility that will provide a lot of entertainment for a lot of people. Baseball park will provide maybe 50, 55, 60 games, and that's only a start. The facility then, if we look at comparable stadiums, can provide as many as, say, 200 events during the year of something other than baseball. That's a sketch of what our park would look like. These are kind of hard to see from back there, but these are some of the non-baseball things that would be going on, many of them focused on kids, because this is supposed to be a family-friendly venue. This is the one in Fort Wayne. I believe it's a AA. And the point here is to take that park and drop it straight on our piece and say, look, we can build one on this spot. It fits, it'll work. And so walking down Buchanan Street, this is what you would see going to our new multi-purpose events venue. There's another view of it. Events happening daytime, nighttime. There's a list of 50 or 60 events that could be taking place. There it is configured for a concert. In that configuration, you can have maybe 9,000 people there. You have 4,500 seats, plus the rest out on the field. There it is configured as a soccer field. And these are other projects that have already begun. Most are still on course. Some have pulled back because they don't know what we're going to do. The indecision at the city council level has caused some to pull back. But these are all downtown projects that have been happening. So in a few minutes here, we'll have some questions. I want to hear from you.
And now we go to Vince Nowak.
Thanks, y'all, for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. Richard said something up front that concerned me. He said, I think he said that the details don't matter. To me, the details matter very much. And he also said that most of the funding will come from the hot tax. And that's the first time I've heard that most of the funding. And he also said that there'll be no property tax increase because that is what's projected. If you hear nothing else from me tonight, please listen very closely to this. In 2010, we hired an outfit called Convention Sports and Leisure International to do a feasibility study on the proposed downtown ballpark. Please listen to these words. These are the people that we paid money to tell us, will it work? According to this outfit in 2010, all information provided to us by others was not audited or verified and was assumed to be correct. Because procedures were limited, we expressed no opinion or assurances of any kind on the achievability of any projected information. Remember, Richard said that we're not going to raise property taxes based upon the projections. These folks are saying we express no assurance on the projected information contained herein, and listen to these words, this report should not be relied upon for that purpose. The very people we asked to study the feasibility on a downtown ballpark told us, do not rely on this report. You know, I'm speaking here tonight against a $32 million downtown ballpark, but I'm not a naysayer. So I want to spend just a minute of the 10 that I have bragging real quick on the city. We've got 5 people that sit up on that dais every week for $10 a week. They spend at least 40 hours a week in addition to their normal jobs working for us. That's pretty damned impressive, and I'm proud of them. We have many, many fine people at the city, including the guy running our animal welfare, Michelle Bonner, the number guru, and a new hire by the name of Sean May, who's the director of environmental health. We have a lot to be thankful for in Amarillo, but what we're here today to talk about is whether we should be against a $32 million ballpark downtown. And I'm squarely against that, and let me tell you why. Let's look at some pretty sobering numbers. Chart 1, please. What you're looking at now is a black screen. Chart 1, Bill. Debt status. This is our debt status. If you look up there, folks, in 2005, we had $95.6 million worth of debt, which worked out to $524 for every person living in Amarillo. In 2015, our debt rose to $346 million, or roughly $1,747 per person. If we roll in the bond for the parking garage and for the $32 million ballpark, our debt will go to $380 million, or otherwise $1,918 a person. That's our debt status. Now let's look at the hot tax summary, the hotel tax. And that's chart 2, Bill. On our best estimate, we have $1.7 million annually to service the ballpark debt. And by the way, all these numbers are from the city of Amarillo, and I confirmed them with Michelle Bonner last Friday because I sure as heck didn't want to misrepresent anything to y'all tonight. Well, what will the downtown cost? Chart 3. $49.8 million. Well, where do we get this money to pay this project? Chart 4, Bill. Now, look at the top line of that. That's bond proceeds, $33.5 million. Well, where do we get the money every year to pay this bond? Chart 5. We need $2.7 million every year to service this debt. With the excess hot money, we've got about $1.9 million. Now, the projections, remember the projections that the outfit we hired told us we couldn't trust? We're projecting a $250,000 lease on the ballpark. The city of Amarillo will candidly admit to you that that is not in place. That is a hope. Public parking fees is another big component on the projections, and they're expecting $425,000 net from the parking garage. Again, and by the way, parking meters that will start springing up around downtown. Again, the city will candidly tell you that that revenue stream is not in place, and these are just projections that cannot be relied upon. Even spending every penny, every excess penny of hot money, we come up short every year. Chart 6. Now, saying that the hot money will pay for everything sounds good. but take a look at this chart. We need $2.7 million every year to service the debt. What we have available is $1.78 million. And I want you all to keep something in mind, because I like to look at comparables. And the two most comparable venues downtown are the Civic Center and the Emerald Globe News Performing Arts Center. Those two venues operate at a loss every single year. It's 1.8 on the Civic Center, it's 400,000 on the Globe News Performing Arts Center. That's $2.2 million loss every year. It is not reasonable to assume that the $32 million ballpark will not also operate at a loss. Well, where does the government get the money to fund all these losses? All of us. Whether it's called a water fee, a property tax, a surcharge on a ticket, increased rent on the Civic Center, you can call it whatever you want. It's money out of our pocket that will be necessary to fund these losses. We simply do not have enough money for this project, and we will have to raise taxes for it. And it's important for you all to know that when you're voting on this stuff. I'd be a little bit remiss if I didn't mention, as Richard did, the downtown hotel, and I'm going to sit so I can get closer to my numbers. And we gave a lot of incentives to Mr. Chuck Patel to build the downtown hotel. And one of those incentives was a non-compete, and that ruffles me pretty bad, because government should not be ensuring that one business operates free of competition from others. And I'm fixing to read you a list, and it's not an exhaustive list, but it's going to sound like an auctioneer giving away public money. This is what we've given for the downtown hotel. The land, $1.2 million. Streetscaping, $632,000. Utilities, $2.9 million. Hotel employee parking, $400,000. Parking lot paving, $189,000. Building permit fee, $96,000. Listen to these next two numbers. Occupancy tax, the city portion. It's estimated at $490,000 every year for 20 years. That is a $9.8 million gift right into the pocket of a downtown business that enjoys to exist free of competition. The next number is the occupancy tax part of the state. That's $420,000 every year for 10 years. That's another $4.2 million straight into the pocket, 60 seconds. There are other benefits we've given. By the way, this downtown hotel that is going to operate free of competition, they got a guaranteed $2 million coming from the city if they don't hit a certain occupancy rate. We're fixing to have a question and answer portion, but let me get it started off. Do we have someone to pay the $250,000 lease on the MPEV? No. Do we have a ball team committed to that park? No. Do we have a designer blueprints? No. Do we have any contracts with it? No. Do we have any assurance that whoever pays for the lease will allow us to hold other events? No. Do we have any assurance that the parking garage will net $425,000 a year? No. When was the last time any government project came off without a hitch? This one is riddled with hitches, and I'm going to end again with the feasibility study I mentioned. Y'all listen to this. These are the people that we paid money to and asked them, will it work? They told us, don't rely on our study. These are all just projections, and I respect Richard very much. In fact, I'm having the honor tomorrow of speaking to his law firm twice on a project that's near and dear to my heart. On this issue, though, I disagree with him. The people we paid money to tell us whether or not it would work said, don't rely on this study and don't rely on the projections. STOP, stop, I'm done. Thank you.
And we thank Richard Brown and Vince Nowak for your presentations. And we have students, a student, the first of perhaps more to come, of questions for me here. Gentlemen, I'll ask this of both of you. And do recall that for your answers, you have 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes. You're not obligated to go 2 minutes, but up to 2 minutes for each answer. Brevity might in fact be an ally for us on those that can be answered briefly, given that it looks like we're going to have quite a few questions. So, first question. If we do all of this, how can it not affect the Civic Center? Would we not be losing events that could have gone to the Civic Center with the construction of this facility? And that goes to whichever of you wishes to go first and then second.
Well, we're not going to play baseball in the Civic Center. We're not going to play soccer in the Civic Center. And what we're trying to do is have a bigger pie, not the same pie. You can't lose sight of what we're trying to do here. You can't get bogged down in the weeds. What we're trying to do is bring back a blighted area, downtown, which has sadly lagged the rest of the city for the last 40 years. It's half the buildings have been plowed under. There's more open space than there are buildings. We need to save our downtown. We need to create more jobs. It's your living room. It's the middle of your town. What do you want it to look like? If you want it to look like Detroit, then okay, let's don't do anything. I think it's pretty easy to break things. And by break things, I mean break with an A. You can stop things from happening, and break things with an E. Just destroy them. This is a big project. It's a catalyst project. It doesn't solve everything, but it is the catalyst that has helped bring almost $100 million in investments just since all of this started. It's like we can't stand success. Let's don't have any more construction cranes downtown. After all, the last time we had one was 1982. I think what we want is something to happen downtown, not nothing. This will not compete with the Civic Center. It will, in fact, make it easier for the Civic Center to book conventions. The hotel will help us do the same thing. The day will come when we need to do something about the Civic Center, but this will support us when that day comes.
I don't think we run the risk of becoming Detroit over a $32 million ballpark, but I believe the question was, how will this affect the Civic Center? Right now, we're funding the Civic Center. We're giving about $2 million a year. Let me tell you how it's going to affect the Civic Center. We are going to need every penny of the hot money to service the debt on the ballpark and the garage. How is it going to affect the Civic Center? Call the Civic Center Peter. We're going to be robbing Peter to pay the debt on the Paul bond. Now, what happens when we run out of Peter? Peter's going to have a lot of company, a lot of brothers and sisters. It's going to be us. How is it going to affect the Civic Center? It's going to divert money away from the Civic Center just to service the debt.
Next question pertains to the hotel occupancy tax. What is that tax currently used for? And with money being diverted to these projects from the hotel occupancy tax, how will that revenue then be replaced for existing purposes?
The hotel tax is supposed to be used to promote tourism, conventions, and so on. Heads and beds. It's a tax on heads and beds, and it's supposed to promote more heads in beds. So how do you do that? Okay, we can all have a different opinion on exactly how you do that. But we're in the middle of a 6-year plan that we've been working on to help put heads in beds by increasing the number of conventions that will be held here in Amarillo. The director of the CVC will tell you there are literally thousands of conventions that will not come here for the simple reason that we do not have a headquarters hotel across the street. Well, check, we've solved that. But how do you get the rest of downtown going? That can't be the end. The current hotel tax has gone up almost 50%. So the place where the money has been going, the same amount of money is going to be going there. It's the excess funds that have come in because our other hoteliers have been so successful. It's the excess funds that will be used to help retire the debt on the multipurpose events venue. And so you can see it's the heads and beds tax. It's going to help pay for the MPEV and put more heads in beds. I don't think any current use of the funds is encumbered in any way. This is taking the extra funds and doing with them what we should be doing with them.
We're not going to have any extra funds. The numbers I went over earlier, these are not my numbers, they're the city numbers. We're not going to have any excess hot funds. And keep in mind, the hotel downtown that enjoys existence without competition will not be paying hot tax. That burden falls on every other hotelier in town, and it's simply not fair. It's not how we do business in Amarillo. It shouldn't be how we do business in Amarillo. Y'all, there's just not enough money. I don't know how many different ways to say it. And if we're going to hang our hat on a ballpark, then we ought to listen to the folks that told us back in 2010, don't trust our projections. And that's all this stuff is. It's projections. It's what we would hope to have happen. But when you have the folks that studied this telling us, don't trust these projections, and we paid them for that advice, we ought to listen to them. You know, we paid some other folks down in Dallas, a very fine law firm, to do due diligence on Walsh Bajali. And if y'all had ever had a chance to look at that study, you would have not touched Walsh Bajali with a 10-foot pole. But we did. And what happened? Please, let's listen to the advice that we paid for, and that is an excellent question on the hot tax. The simple fact is there's not enough to go around. We need to develop downtown, but a $32 million ballpark, in my opinion, is misguided. Thank you.
To Richard Brown, with allowance for follow-up by Vince Nowak. Richard, what is your response to the argument that the money is not there? What is your response to the argument that the money is not there?
Well, the money is there. I mean, the first question is the money there to build it? I think the more important question is the money there to service the debt, since a significant part of the funds that will be used to build it are bonds. So literally, the money is there. There's no question that we can borrow the money. What you really want to be focused on is how are we going to service the debt. And it is a gross misstatement to say that the hot tax is not there, and it's a gross misstatement to say that any hotelier in this town is paying the hot tax. The only people that pay the hot tax are the people that sleep in the beds at night, and it's on their bill, and it gets collected by the state, and then it comes back to the city. So not one hotel in this town is paying that tax. And the new hotel that's going in is not getting any benefit from any other hotel. They're just getting a rebate of their own tax under a state statute that is in place to incentivize the construction of the hotel. So when you say the money isn't there, the question is really debt service. And we've spent a lot of time focused on debt service. Most of the discussion today seems focused on the hot tax. The hot tax is only covering $1.5 million of the annual debt service, and we already have an excess number of $1.7 million. So unless you think the wheels are going to stop turning, the money will be there, and the debt will get serviced by the hotel motel tax, which is exactly what it's supposed to do.
And I agree with Richard. We do have roughly $1.78 million of hot tax available to service that debt every year. The problem is the debt service will cost us $2.7 million. Where's that money going to come from? Well, according to the city, it's projected income. Projected income. Remember, please remember the feasibility study that said, because procedures were limited, we expressed no opinion or assurances of any kind on the achievability of any projected information contained herein, and this report should not be relied upon. Please remember that. So if we're looking to collect this money off of the projections in the future, the very folks that looked at this said, don't rely on those projections. Thank you.
We'll begin with you, Mr. Brown, and Mr. Nowak to follow. Please define what is considered the MPEV without the ballpark. And the gentleman who wrote this says he believes the proposition, as stated on the ballot, is confusing in that respect.
Well, of course, I never said I thought it should be on the ballot. I think it's a very complex question, and it's very, very hard to reduce a construction project that's over $100 million to a 1 or 2 line ballot item. That's very tough. But what became apparent was, notwithstanding the change in the city commission and notwithstanding differences in views, we're pretty far into this project, and you cannot have a $100 million construction project depend on a 2-year election cycle. You can't do contracts that way, you can't build buildings that way, and if you want your city to be respected and to be able to sign contracts to do something in the future, you got to stick with the plan and get to the end. Okay, so the MPEV isn't built. Can we stop? Yes, you can stop. But every single commissioner has said there's going to be an MPEV. So I guess we're not going to stop. So the only thing that's on the ballot is, do you want the baseball park to be one of the options going forward? So you can vote no, and then it's not an option. And then we'll go try to figure out something else to put in its place. And perhaps there is something. Perhaps there's even something better. Well, I just don't know why you'd take it off I don't know why you'd take it off the table. It's like saying, I'm going to build a shopping center, but I'm not going to have any Dillard's department store because I don't like them. Let's take that off the table. I think we should be open to whomever and whatever we can put in there. And I have said since the election in the spring, it's too early to be against the MPEV. It's too early because it's still a projection, and projections have to start as projections. They cannot start as reality. Mr. Nowak can read you the footnote from the report that says we don't rely on projections, but every auditor's report you've ever read says you can't rely on anything that the management told us. Well, of course not. They're not in that position. They just crank the numbers and say, if these numbers are correct, it will work.
And of course, the numbers they're relying on were not audited or verified. But the question is, what is the MPEV without a ballpark? I don't know. And I get asked a lot, okay, well, what's your plan B? Well, my plan B is not doing plan A, which is a $32 million ballpark. Make no mistake about it, when you vote on November 3rd, if you vote for, you are voting for a $32 million ballpark. If you vote against, you leave the options wide open. Wide open. And as Richard said, it's too early to be for or against. But yet we have this ballot issue about a $32 million ballpark. There's really been no planning into it. I think a sane plan B is, let's not build a $32 million ballpark. Let's leave our options open. Thank you.
Richard, at least in the flow of the questions so far, continuing you in the role of answering the first question and then rebuttal, we'll do this here. We already have a ballpark, Potter County Memorial Stadium, and we have a 10,000-seat venue, the Amarillo National Center. Concerts have been done at both of these venues within the past year, so why can't we just continue to use these venues along with our Civic Center and the Globe News Center for concerts?
Well, I think the short answer is, if you like the way downtown development has gone for the last 40 years, then you can adopt Mr. Nowak's plan of not doing Plan A, because that's the one you've got right now. And so what's changed? Isn't it very interesting to drive downtown and it's a construction zone? You can barely get through. I hate that. Gosh, what a burden. We've got to have a little bit of optimism. We've got to have a little bit of belief in ourselves. One of the crushing moments for me was when Chuck Patel said, I don't understand your town. I have more confidence in you than you do. And I didn't have an answer to that, because I'm afraid that's where we are right now. You know, this is the town, this is the community that built the Amarillo International Airport. We built the medical center. We built parks all over town. This is just another park. What's so hard about this? What's so scary about this? This is going to be fine. This is another facility that will benefit the people that live in Amarillo. It's something else to do, somewhere else to go. It is simply not true to say no planning went into the plan. We've been planning for years. And when it started on the hotel, it was, how can you get someone else to build a hotel when we haven't been able to get anyone to do it for 10 years? Well, we now have someone building us a hotel, a $45 million hotel on city land that will be owned by the city. Do you really believe that was possible? Well, it's reality. Will the MPEV work? I think it will.
I certainly meant no disrespect to Mr. Brown's extraordinary efforts over the years when I said no planning. What I'm referring to is you saw all the list of things that we could do at the MPEV. We don't know what it's going to be other than, at this point, a $32 million ballpark. And the question was, why can't we do all those things at the venues we currently have? The ballpark, the A&B Center, and the Globe News Performing Arts Center. And the answer to that is, we can. We can use those facilities now. Thank you.
Beginning again with Mr. Brown, continuing in the vein of the use of existing facilities, why not increase the Civic Center for more indoor conventions instead of outdoor events during our winters? Revenue seems to come only in the summer.
I've not been involved in the multiple studies that have been done on the Civic Center. I just kind of know the end result of that. It's an old facility, and the time is coming when we'll have to do something about it. There are a lot of technical issues. The loading docks aren't at the right height. The back house, the kitchens aren't that good. So there's a lot of things that will have to be done, and that will be a major issue. It will take a bond issue. If you think the MPEV is big, wait until we get to, now we have to do something about the Civic Center. But you remember the people before you built that thing 50 years ago, and nobody guaranteed that it was going to stand up by itself without somebody taking care of it. And eventually we will have to take care of it. What we're trying to do is put in place another facility that will contribute to the synergy downtown to create more private investment, more jobs, and to preserve our downtown. If you just take, for example, the new XL building that's going in, year and a half, 2 years ago when I had the first conversations with them, the question was, so we've got a spot on the west side of town and we've got a place in Lubbock we're looking at, and we have 600 jobs. Do you want us to leave? You want us to stay? And what can you do to help us? We didn't actually do a whole lot except say, look at what we're doing downtown. This is a place you're going to want to be. And what XL said to us was, our biggest concern is a third of our workforce is about to retire, and we need energetic, young, smart people to want to live, work, and play downtown. And that's what we need to help them do.
I think the question was, why don't we focus our efforts on the Civic Center? And I think we should. That's my answer. Thank you.
Again, Mr. Brown, the question is, in the literature that proponents have put out, they claim that the ballpark will create 76 new jobs. What are these new jobs?
My short answer to that is I don't think anybody can say with certainty anything as certain as that 76 new jobs. We don't have an architect's plan. We don't have any bid documents. We are a long way from building anything. Right across the street is the hotel. You could have said all the same things about the hotel 4 years ago. Go over and look at the construction started now. There's a plan now. It's underway now. So 76 jobs, I don't know, and I suspect nobody knows. That's one of those projections. And maybe it's right and maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's 85 jobs, maybe it's 55 jobs. But it's jobs, and it's not those jobs that are important. It's that those jobs may cause the private sector to invest downtown, to reinvest in the core of our community. We're just a big tribe, and we all want to go to the center of town and be together every now and then. And I think it ought to be a nice place.
I think it ought to be a nice place as well. And I can't speak to the 76 or 78, however many jobs it was, because I haven't seen anything definitively that will say these are the jobs we're creating and this is what it'll pay. But I do agree with Richard that we don't have any architect's plans. We have no bid documents. We have no one to lease the facility, and we have no team to play there. What we're voting on is whether we're going to build a $32 million Indy League ballpark. That's what we know for certain. And that, in my opinion, is not a wise use of our dollars, especially when we're having to leverage just about every penny just to service the debt. Thank you.
Questions coming in, and I want to insert a moderator's note here. The League of Women Voters does have a commitment to Amarillo College to be clear of the facility as close to around 8 o'clock as is possible. So we'll be concluding. I'm going to use a term I don't generally like, 8-ish. We're going to be looking at that for this evening. So the questions are being asked as quickly as I can assemble them, and I'm eliminating some that are in essence repetitive of some of the others that have come in. This one actually expands on the previous question, and again for you, Mr. Brown. Where can the public find the studies containing the numbers that are being discussed by proponents in support of the MPEV ballot initiative?
I think the best source to go for that is probably the Downtown Amarillo Inc. website. They have sort of an endless reams of studies there. You can read them until you go blind. And what you have to remember is these are just studies of what may be possible. Now, what I'm hearing from Mr. Nowak is, oh, well, we don't know what the plans are, so we don't know what we're voting on. Well, I'll agree with that, because for the last 5 weeks before the council decided to put it on the ballot, I was saying to them, put what on the ballot? We don't know how to articulate exactly what it is because we are not at that point. But the council was determined that something would be on the ballot, and so I would like to think this is everyone's best effort to put something on the ballot. And what I will say to you is, if you want to vote for Amarillo, you need to vote for this. It's not about the size of the baseball park. It's not about whether they're going to sell popcorn or cotton candy. It's about whether you're for Amarillo and whether you want to move forward or you want to stop what we're doing and go backwards because it was so great for the last 20 years while downtown was decaying. You should vote for Amarillo, not against Amarillo.
I wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I could. I spent my first 2 years in Dallas looking for John Wayne and realized he wasn't there. I've been in Amarillo for 23 years. I've been in Texas for half of my adult life. I am a strong proponent. I am for Amarillo. I don't think the way to improve our town, however, is to mortgage the future of the millennials, frankly, on a $32 million ballpark. I think the question was, where can folks find some of these numbers? The numbers that were up on the screen when I was speaking, I'll put them up on a web. I don't have a website. I'm not a spokesperson for any particular group. But I'll tell you what, I'll put them on my Facebook page. And if you'd want to go and copy, download them, however that happens, I'll put them up there tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of similar questions here related to the impact I guess you would say, in terms of how the neighborhood would be affected if these projects go forward. One is the fact that we already enjoy pretty significant traffic congestion in the downtown area. Would that not perhaps be heightened, made worse by these projects, and the ballpark most notably? And also, what about the possibility that this will raise the noise level for people living around the ballpark and also the crime rate around the area? Is there anything to say on that? And again, we go to you, Mr. Brown.
It is downtown. It's not the farm. So it is a different environment. Not everyone's going to want to live here, and we don't expect everyone to live here. But we're trying to build a community that is one where all types are happy. They'll stay here, they'll work, they'll contribute their skills to help us all have a better place to live, a place where our kids will want to stick around. So the question was, will it increase traffic? I hope so. Will it increase noise? I hope so. Will it increase the crime rate? I don't hope for that, but I don't think it's going to be the ballpark's fault. And so I think we will deal with that if and when it comes. What we're doing here is not mortgaging the future. I mean, you know, we live in a town with, I think, the second lowest debt in the state of Texas, the lowest ad valorem tax rate in the state of Texas. I mean, what's bad about this place? Again, it's like we can't stand success. Things are working so well, it's like we've gone paranoid. The Potter County Courthouse was built in the Great Depression. Amarillo International Airport was built when 20,000 people just left town. Are we not the same pioneers? Have we lost that spirit that we can do this? Have we lost the ability to see a future bigger than what we have? Where's Ronald Reagan when we need him?
President Reagan was one of my heroes. And I think we still have his spirit here. I'm not a city planner or a city engineer, so I can't speak intelligently to the traffic or the noise, although I assume there's going to be more traffic and probably more noise. But the older I get, the more difficult it is for me to hear, so that probably won't affect me too much. I think we do have that pioneering spirit. With respect to crime, we need to develop downtown. And I've heard Richard say this before, that when the tide rises, we all are elevated. It helps all of us. I look forward to working with the Amarillo leaders to continue to develop downtown that benefits all of our community. And you know what? That includes the folks at Faith City Ministries. It includes the folks at the Downtown Women's Shelters. It includes the folks at the Salvation Army. A $32 million ballpark is not the answer to how we move forward. However, that's what's on the ballot for November 3rd. I'm asking you to vote against it because that leaves our options open. If the vote is for it, we're going to get a $32 million ballpark, an independent league ballpark. And I don't think that's wise for us. I don't think that's the best course for Amarillo right now. Thank you.
Next question, and Vince, I will just throw this one to you. Do you know if and with Mr. Brown to respond as well, do you know if the Thunderheads are still showing an interest in the new ballpark?
I don't. I know the owner at one point had responded to our request, and he did show interest. But as far as I know, and Richard can speak to this far better than I can, as far as I know, they never got to the point of a contract documents, never got to the point of a commitment. And remember, that commitment is going to need to be a $250,000 lease every single year. And I'm not for certain what the lease right now is, and Richard probably does off the top of his head with Potter County. I want to say it's in the neighborhood of $25,000 a year. $50,000 a year. So we would be asking them to pay 5 times as much every single year. Thank you.
The answer to the question is really whether Mr. Elliston is still interested in our ballpark if we have a ballpark. And you have to remember this was 3 big projects. Now, this is not easy. These are big projects. They're expensive. It takes a lot of time and planning. And we couldn't do it all at once, and we were very paralyzed by who goes first. If you have this vision of what it's going to look like at the end, and you could magically wave, it's like FedEx. I understand how FedEx works now, but how did it ever get started? I mean, you give them a package and you say, I want this to go to Dallas, and they say, we only fly to San Antonio? I mean, I don't know. So we had the problem of how do we get this done, and so we had to go in bite sizes and find our way there. And so we first had to get Coca-Cola out of the way, so we had the space. Then we had to get the hotel on board, which we considered the key to making the Civic Center work, and we had to have a parking garage, and then it's the ballpark. So the ballpark is running last. So when you say we don't have a plan, yeah, we don't have a detailed plan, but it's been part of the big plan all along. And so where we were in the process was we said, okay, we're going to send out a request for proposal and ask those who would like to respond and say, I would like to run your ballpark, because the LGC didn't want to be in the business of running the ballpark. And we had one response to that. That was the Thunderheads, Mr. Elliston, and he was interested in talking with us about running this new facility. We got no further than that. Dead halt at that point because we had the election and what were we going to do? So we just stopped. And we stopped for 5-6 months, and then we literally had a stop order from the city council, and so we turned Mr. Elliston loose from his non-disclosure agreement, and so we're back to square one when you say who's going to operate the multi-purpose events venue.
Another question related to the Thunderheads, and Mr. Brown, I'll go to you with this one. Do you know how many fans attended Thunderheads games this year, and would there be the expectation that we would automatically see an attendance gain with a new ballpark?
I don't know the number of fans that attended, but if we don't have more, I can't imagine why we're doing this. I mean, to go from a 1920s, I think, facility that is it's in a not very good spot. I mean, there's just, I'll tell you this, the next to last time I talked to Elliston, and I said, I don't know what's going to happen. Everything's still up in the air. Don't quit me. Hang on. He said, look, I've been hanging on for years here, waiting for you guys to get this done. And I have to go to a league meeting, and every league meeting I go to, I have to answer to the fact that out of 32 teams, we have the worst stadium. And they say to me, we don't want to send our players there. We're afraid they will get hurt. I can't keep doing that. Please make this project happen.
I can't tell you how many people attend, but I can say this with certainty, not enough that would service the debt on a $32 million downtown ballpark, number one. Number two, you need to keep in mind that we've already invested about more than $9.1 million into this downtown venue already with the deal we made with Coke. And as far as this notion as to, who goes first, government or private investor, I'll simply note that Mr. Perry Williams is building his own little village out there on Sauncey without any incentives, without any tax breaks, complete private investment, and he's doing a heck of a job out there. Thanks.
Next question to Mr. Brown. There are ads on television claiming that there will be no new property taxes associated with the baseball stadium. What guarantees that?
Well, I guess I think the most recent election to the city council tells you that there is no guarantee what a future city council may do. But what the plan has been for the last 4 years is to find a way to get the project done without an increase in ad valorem taxes. Somewhere in all of this, there's drainage fee money, there's money that comes from lots of sources, and so it would not be accurate to say there's not a single dollar of property tax in this somewhere. Well, of course there is. You got to drive down the street to get there. How did that street get built? So, okay, it's there somewhere. But what we have tried to do is put together a project that would not drive an increase in ad valorem tax. And honestly, the main thing we're concerned about is we have the much bigger challenge ahead of what do we do with the Civic Center. And that probably is going to increase your taxes. That's going to be a tough one. This should be the easy one. We should get this one done and move on and get on with the hard projects.
I agree with Mr. Brown. There are no guarantees that taxes won't increase to fund the debt on the $32 million ballpark. And I also agree that government has lots of different sources or names. It has lots of different names for what it calls the money that it collects, but it has only one source, and that's our wallets, y'all. And I've seen the commercial, and I understand that, you know, the glass is half full, and I have tremendous respect for Mr. Brown and Dr. Matney. However, nobody can guarantee you that it won't increase taxes. The numbers I showed you earlier that I'll put up on my Facebook page later so y'all can take some time to look at them tell me that we're going to need money, about $1 million extra every year to service the debt. And folks, that's got to come from us. Whether you call it a water fee, you know, an increase in the ad valorem, extra service charges on whatever, it's got to come from us. Thank you.
Question again to Mr. Brown. This relates to hotels. The longest operating hotel in Amarillo history was in business for 51 years before it was closed. How was it possible to offer a lease to operate a hotel for 80 years?
The lease that was offered was a negotiated term, and what you have to remember is that Mr. Patel and his investors are building the hotel, so it's their $45 million is going into it. Our concern in negotiating the contract, you know, it's 160 pages and you'll go blind trying to read it, but actually it's pretty simple what our concern was. We just wanted a nice hotel. We're not paying for it. We just wanted a nice hotel. So they have to operate at a standard, which is the closest thing we could find to an objective standard, which is the four diamond standard by the AAA Association. So there is a standard to which they must build and operate the hotel. There is not one in Amarillo. There are 22 cities in Texas that have one. Amarillo does not. So this should be the nicest hotel in town. Will it last 80 years? I don't know. I don't really care. I just want a nice hotel. And I hope it lasts 80 years, but if it only makes it 51 years, I'm going to declare victory and go home.
I think we all want a nice hotel downtown, and how is an 80-year lease possible? I don't know, but it happened, so it must be possible. But let me remind you of some numbers of how we enticed Mr. Patel to get this. The $1.2 million in free land, the $600,000 in landscaping, the $2.9 million in utilities, the $400,000 for the parking lot land, the $189,000 for paving the parking lot, $96,000 for the permit fee, $9.8 million rebate in the occupancy tax city part of it, $4.2 million in the state part of it. With everything we were giving them, why not an 80-year lease? Thank you.
At this time, another moderator's note. We are a little less than a quarter till the hour of 8 o'clock, and we have ample questions already up here now for our presenters to respond to. So if you have another question, perhaps get it in very quickly because we're going to start moving toward wrap-up. Here is the next question for you, Mr. Brown. Are there any projections of the amount of funds that will be generated by people living outside of Amarillo coming to the MPEV and the improvements to downtown?
If there are, I don't know what they are, and my esteemed opponent here would choke me if I gave you a projection, so I can't do that.
Your esteemed opponent didn't even hear the question, so you can say whatever you want.
The thought would be this. The convention goers that go to the Civic Center, mostly they're from out of town. Are the people that go to the ballpark, are they mostly going to be from out of town? No, I don't think so. I hope a lot of them are from Dumas or Pampa or places like that. But I don't think anybody's going to drive here from Oklahoma City just to see the Amarillo team play. This is a park. This is our park. This is your team. This is something to be proud of as a part of Amarillo, just like all the other parks we have. How many will go to the ball games? I don't know, but I think it'll be fun. I think it's something we want to have. And you say, well, okay, Thompson Park, how many people go to the zoo? I don't have a clue, but I'm glad that we have a zoo. I'm glad that we have a place for kids to go and see some animals, and they don't have to go to Fort Worth or Dallas to see the nearest zoo. So how many will come from out of town? I don't know. I don't think that's the important question. The more important question is, can we inspire new building downtown? Can we create new jobs downtown? Can we preserve a vibrant community? That's what we need to be focused on. And yes, okay, Mr. Patel got some incentives to come here. Well, that's because we couldn't get anybody to do this for decades. And so when you say, oh, he's getting millions of dollars in hotel occupancy tax, well, that's a rebate of his own tax. If he didn't build the hotel, it wouldn't exist. So you can't think it's coming out of your pocket, because it doesn't exist unless he builds the hotel. And it's under a state statute that's applied statewide, and your state government makes that tool available to us to help make something happen in Amarillo.
It's the first time I've seen her shake it. James, what was the question? And
Going back to the question, to read it here, are there any projections on the amount of funds that will be generated by people living outside of Amarillo and coming to the MPEV and the improvements to downtown?
Okay, that's the projection question, and you know what my answer would be. It's a projection, and the folks that did the feasibility study said don't rely on our projections. And I agree that the money that's being rebated to Mr. Chuck Patel is money that he's collecting, paying, and get it rebated back to him. But what y'all need to understand is that puts him at an automatic financial advantage over every other hotel in town. Every other hotel charges this hot fee, this hot tax. I know that's redundant to say hot tax. Everyone else charges it, but they have to forward it on. Mr. Chuck Patel gets to keep it. And he gets to keep that along with, and again, this just rubs me the wrong way, along with the non-compete agreement. So he's starting off with more money with every head that's in a bed, and he enjoys no competition. I don't think that's fair, guys.
Next question relates to concerts. Give this to you, Vince. We'll let Richard Brown respond. But if concerts were scheduled, who would be the promoter, and how many concerts could be realistic?
I think a lot of that is still open, but the answer to who would be the promoter is, I think, more than one. The Convention and Visitors Bureau is the principal promoter of downtown, principal promoter of Amarillo, and I think they would continue to serve that function. With respect to these specific venues, there would be someone there that would be trying to make it work for these specific venues. What has been envisioned for the MPEV is that the operator of the MPEV will be strongly incentivized to make it work because they're paying rent to be there, and the team is there, and so on. So the operator of the MPEV will be trying as hard as he or she can to promote that facility. But it will not be in a vacuum. It's across the street from the Civic Center. It's across the street from the hotel. And that's the synergy we're trying to build on to create a place where a lot of people want to be for different reasons. Not everybody wants to go to the ball game, but maybe they want to have dinner at the hotel. Maybe they want to go to the tractor pull inside the Civic Center. I don't know. Lots of choices. That's what we want to happen.
I couldn't begin to tell you who the promoter is going to be, but I think if history tells us anything, with a 4,500-seat ballpark, we're not going to get the big names. The big names will continue to go to Lubbock. I do agree with something Richard said. I agree with a lot of what Richard says, but this in particular is, it's nice to have nice things, and we deserve nice green spaces. You know, as I was driving up here today, I passed the chamber. I don't know what they're doing, but they have a little band set up on the porch and people in lawn chairs out there listening. That's nice. And you know, those are amenities that we ought to have for ourselves. But a $32 million ballpark, if we build that, we're not going to have to worry about who's going to be promoting concerts, because we will not get the draw that Lubbock gets in its arena. Thanks.
Couple of questions here. I'm kind of combining things as I go here, but this relates to the issue that has been suggested that if the ballpark is voted down, if anything were to occur with these projects other than what has been proposed, we would lose credibility with potential developers. This question, I think, articulates it best. It was directed for you, Mr. Nowak. With only a verbal contract for the ballpark, as the mayor has stated, why should any future developers refuse to work with Amarillo if the ballpark is not built? Most people understand the difference, says the question writer, between a written and a verbal contract.
If you shake my hand and we make a deal, you've got to deal with me, whether it's in writing or if it's oral. It's a little bit different when you're the mayor that runs the city. That's why we have agendas. Agendas give us notice about what sort of business the city is doing on that particular day. I have heard a lot about handshakes and oral promises. I have yet to see one on the agenda. The way we maintain our credibility is by operating smart. And operating smart, in my opinion, is not building a $32 million ballpark because someone somewhere may have had a handshake with somebody else. Thank you.
In discussing the XL project with their director of development from Minnesota, we of course got the question, will you guarantee that you're going to build the MPEV? And my answer to that was, no, I can't do that. I don't own a baseball team. I don't even have the ground yet because Coca-Cola's sitting on it. And I can keep going and give you 52 reasons why I can't guarantee you that we're going to build a ballpark. And then his next question is, then why should I believe that you're going to build a ballpark? Well, we have a strategic action plan. We've been working on it for years. And if you look at what we have been doing downtown, we're executing on the plan. So all I can tell you is we have a plan. I think everybody that's involved is making a good faith effort to carry out the plan. And if we can build the MPEV, we will build the MPEV. If we can't put a ball team in it, I don't think that'll be a baseball stadium. Some things you just can't do. So we kind of got past that, and then we got to another meeting, and at that point, he was looking at me and he said, well, I get it that you're not going to guarantee me a ballpark. Will you landscape that 4 blocks over there while you're trying to figure out what you're going to do? And I said, no, I'm not Kevin Costner. I'm not going to plant the corn and wait for it to show up. We have a plan. I believe we're going to execute the plan. I think Amarillo is the kind of place that believes that a handshake is as good as a contract. And when you say, here's our plan, this is what we want to do, no one expects you to jump off a cliff and do something stupid, but they sure expect you to try. And I think that's why we should vote for Amarillo on November 3, because it may be $32 million, it may be $13 million, it may be I don't know what it may be, but we need to do something. Why would you take it off the table that maybe the something is a ballpark?
We are going to go with 2 more questions before we conclude. The first one is on the hot tax. Will the hot tax be increased for these projects? And again, that goes to you, Mr. Brown.
The hot tax will not be increased. That's a state tax. We couldn't increase that if we wanted to. I have no control over what they do down in Austin, but it's a statewide tax. I think we have some, I'm not sure, we may have some local option about how much of it is collected here, but in any event, we can't increase it. So really all you're talking about here is the flow of the funds coming from that tax. So somebody from Minnesota is sleeping in a hotel tonight and is paying the tax, is going to get collected by the hotelier, who's going to give it to the state, who's going to give it back to us, and the question is, what are you going to do with the funds when they come back? And so we're going to take that dollar that we got from Minnesota and we're going to do all the same things we've been doing with that dollar for years, plus we're going to build this MPEF.
You know, if wishing made it so, I heard Richard say it might be a $13 million ballpark. The fact of the matter is the issue on the ballot is a $32 million ballpark. Richard mentioned the flow of funds. And redirecting them. Well, the flow of funds are going to be redirected to service the $32 million debt, and they're going to be directed away from the Civic Center, the Globe News Performing Arts Center, tourism, and there's just not enough money to go around. I know I start sounding like a broken record, but folks, that's how it is. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, first for you. This vote on November 3rd and in the early voting period prior will only determine if we include a ballpark or not. The MPEV project presumably will go forward nevertheless. What is slated as a plan B if the people vote no on the ballpark?
Well, as Vince said earlier, there is no plan B. The only plan is to stop this plan from happening. I am encouraged that all the city councilmen recognize that there does need to be a plan B. We do need to do something, but I have no clue what that is. So if you vote for Amarillo, I think what you're saying is, let's move forward, let's get this done. If baseball is the thing to do, then do it. It's a non-binding referendum. The same guys are going to be trying to figure out what to do the day after the election that are sitting there now. And we're going to be talking to the same people and we're going to be having the same discussions about now what. And I hope the answer to that is, well, let's continue to study, let's continue to figure out what we need to be doing. That's what I personally wanted to do before the decision was made to put this on the ballot. I thought we needed to get closer to what's this thing we're talking about. The $32 million, that's from a string of numbers that somebody put together 4 years ago. I don't think they're correct. I hope they're in the ballpark, but I don't know that. So we need to get a little further along, and quite honestly, I think that's why you elect people. You elect them to make these decisions. And when they put on the ballot, what size sewer line do you think we should have? 48 inches or 36 inches? Do you really want to be voting on that? These guys are getting paid $10 a week to figure that out. I think they should.
I think they ought to figure it out as well. And even though the referendum is non-binding, I can promise you this. If you vote for, we're going to get a $32 million ballpark. If you vote against, we're going to have options available to us. I just don't think it's wise to vote for a $32 million expenditure, which is going to result in an independent league ballpark, based upon a string of numbers put together years ago. vote against it, we have options. Vote for it, folks. We're going to have a $32 million ballpark. Thank you.
And we want to thank Richard Brown and Vince Nowak. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I know that both of you have been spending a lot of time visiting with all kinds of community groups and individuals within the community. Thanks for making the League of Women Voters a part of your list of people that you have spent time with. We appreciate you tonight. We appreciate Amarillo College for the facilities. We appreciate the students from WT. Thank you for all of your help. Thanks to all of you here in the audience for being here. Those who are participants in tonight's program, if you would like to visit with them afterward, you are certainly free to do so for as long as they wish to stay. And also bear in mind, Amarillo College needs this facility. They may tell you that you don't have to go home, but you do need to get out.